And while you're doing that, I'll introduce myself and set some ground rules. I am Jacqueline Friedman. I'm the founder and executive director of Educate Us. We are a 501(c)(3) nonprofit building a movement, a grassroots movement for sex education around the country. And we are really glad to have you here as a part of it. This is a No Means No event with a KNOW. We host these events once a month. Approximately. We won't do one in December because everyone's busy in December, but most months we host one, and these are all events about learning things that'll make us better advocates for sex education, so that we can all learn more together and be more effective together. Joining me, in addition to Soraya, who I'll introduce in a moment, is Candace Hartnett, Educate Us lead organizer, whom we love. Candace will be in the chat with you, helping out with links and questions and basically keeping things going. So thank you for being here, Candace. Um, I think that is it. Did I forget any announcements, Candace?
No, I don't think so. I think we're ready to get
Okay.
started.
So what's going to happen is Soraya and I are going to chat for a while. I have questions to ask Soraya, but then we're also going to have loads of time for you all to ask questions for Soraya. Again, if you do want to do that, you can put that in the Q&A feature on the bottom of your Zoom. Don't just leave it in the chat. We won't be able to answer it. Don't be shy. While we're talking, you can go ahead and start getting your questions going, and we'll answer them as we get to them. And then at the end, there'll be a drawing, and Sara's going to give a few of her incredible new book away to folks who are here. So make sure to stay to the end. That said, Soraya Chemaly is here with us as our guest tonight on No Means No. This is Soraya's first event for All We Want Is Everything. So you all are the first to hear Soraya speak on it, which is really exciting. Soraya is a longtime friend and compatriot of mine. We are, I like to say we're feminist shitsters together.
All-purpose feminist agitators.
Yes, longtime feminist agitators. When I want to get in some trouble, I call Soraya. Um,
Yep.
and that's why Soraya was the first person I called when I was putting Educate Us together, and Soraya's been on our board of directors since then.
I
But
remember that conversation.
yes, you were like, and I was
no.
I promise if it gets in the way of the friendship, you can leave the board.
Yeah. No, I remember not the board question. I remember the idea conversation.
Oh yeah. And you may know Soraya as the best-selling author of Rage Becomes Her. If you don't know Rage Becomes Her, you're in for a treat. But she's here tonight to talk about her new book, which is called All We Want Is Everything, about how we dismantle male supremacy. And I'm going to start out with a question for you, Soraya, that I think is going to help you like really set the stage. Um, we, as I said, have been having these events once a month for over a year. We've talked about some spicy topics already. We talked about misogynoir and politics. We've talked about how we have to care about attacks on porn if we care about sex ed. We've talked certainly about how to talk about trans issues, which people sometimes have strong, spicy opinions on. Our audience is not batted an eyelash. When we released the sign up for this event, I had somebody email me and unsubscribe in a huff.
Yeah, that's interesting, right?
And I am really interested in why male supremacy, talking about it in those terms specifically, because I think if we had said something about fighting patriarchy or
Gender
misogyny
equality.
or gender equality, right? Like, I don't think anyone would have resigned in a huff from our
Right.
email list. Why does talking about it as male supremacy make people so uncomfortable? And why is it necessary to talk about it in those terms?
So you and I certainly, Candace, I don't know everybody on the chat, but we're all old enough to remember when if you said the words white supremacy, people literally blanched, usually, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I said it once on the Diane Rehm show, right, like in 2016. And I think they just wanted me to stop talking as fast as humanly possible because we were talking actually about sexual violence. And I was like, well, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that those words, white supremacy, male supremacy, they are really threatening to people's identities, to their sense of being good people, to their ideas about their own investments in equality or justice. And so the response is emotional fragility, it's defensiveness, it's anger, it's anything to displace an engagement with the ideas.
It's very interesting to me.
And,
And so
yeah.
were you at all concerned by talking about it directly like that? I mean, you're a person who wants to sell a book. Was there a conversation about like, is this going to make people not want to buy the book?
You know, that's really interesting. I am a person who wants to sell a book, but I actually probably would say that what I really want is to provoke a conversation. And that isn't the same as selling a book, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, we don't write books, you and I, because it makes us money. That's not why we write books, right?
If we did, we're doing it wrong.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, it's just, you know, and the debate with this book was, what will the subtitle be? Because for me, the title was, I was like, non-negotiable. This is what I want the title to
I
be.
love the title so much. Yes.
Thank you. But the title kind of captures
Yeah.
a moment and also a feeling and an objective and all of the things. But because my editor and publishers want to sell books, they wanted the subtitle to be something that would appeal to readers as pragmatic and useful in their own day-to-day lives. And so one suggestion from the sales force was A Guide to Male Supremacy, which was a hard no for me. I was like, I just can't say those words seriously. And the closest we're going to get is How We Dismantle, because part of the argument of the book is we are dismantling it. It is why backlash is so powerful, right? And it's not even that we have to take to the streets or do something radical. It is that we are a revolution in the way we lead our lives, the decisions we make, the choices of who we want to associate with, how we want to work. And so on a day-to-day basis, we're kind of just eroding and eroding and eroding this system, which is why it is in panic.
Can you talk about women rejecting heterosexual marriage? Because that I found that part of the book very compelling.
Well,
I should say for the record, I am in
yes,
fact married to a cis man, but
I am too, right?
yeah.
And so I'd say we probably understand what we're talking about
Yes.
in that way, right? But I do think that the book starts from, as Rage Becomes Her did, it starts off with intimate inequality, intimate life. And it ends up with the kind of death dealing global politics that we're all being subjected to, right? It scales up. And the reason that I do it that way is because we are always fighting against the imposition of a public-private divide. And that divide is imposed on us in ways that sustains white supremacy, xenophobia, homophobia, and gender inequality. And so by focusing first on intimate inequality, I think it helps us see the way it operates in day-to-day life. And I think, and I don't say this lightly because I have thought about it a lot, I think what we have lived through in particularly our lifetimes is possibly the biggest exodus from patriarchal institutions, certainly in the shortest amount of time ever, right? Like all over the world, heterosexual marriage has been on the decline as women have gained rights and independence and financial ability to support themselves and to be educated. Birth rates have plummeted with birth control and abortion, safe abortion access. Those are two main pillars of male supremacist systems. And so the conversations people have about, you know, the population crisis, the male loneliness crisis, the relationship crisis, the dating crisis, the sex crisis, the hetero pessimism, I think those are just all dimensions of men's crises with equality, right? And they're all positioned as threats, but in fact, in another scenario, we could be celebrating them as liberating everybody from these rigid constraints.
Let's talk about the boy crisis or the man crisis or whatever a little. We had a pair of No Means No sessions this year, one on resisting the radicalization of young men with Equimundo, who you're on the board of, and one this summer on the resisting the radicalization of young women. And there's two of the most popular conversations we've had this year.
Right.
People really want to talk about it. And you write in just really smart and illuminating ways about the boy crisis framing,
Yeah.
and about how we have to separate sort of the truth of men's feelings like there's a crisis
Yes.
from the facts of men's power in the
Right.
culture, which I love. And like my instinct is always, I don't know, fuck men, we've been in crisis forever, we figured it out. But also, realistically, the fact that boys and men are having those feelings
Mm,
is what is making them vulnerable to radicalization, right? Is
that's right.
making it
That's
so.
right.
And I'm always sort of swinging between those sort of places of being like, oh my God, I have to talk about the boy crisis.
Mhm.
And well, like maybe we do need to attend to this because look what we're living through right now as a result of
Right.
radicalization. And like, how do you ever find a landing place in that? Or are you like
I
more
do.
just
I
like
do. I mean, I
hanging
don't
in those
know. We
places?
don't. I've talked to you about this often, and
Yeah.
this is so interesting because I actually think feminists are often the most empathetic to the crisis issue and to the loneliness or to the psychic pain or to the emotional dysfunction and the isolation. And in fact, it was feminism initially that spurred a masculinities study of men and their psychology and identity formation. And that's a long time back and forth between gender studies, feminism, blah, blah, blah. But I think two things about the moment we're in vis-a-vis both of those things, men and radicalization and women and radicalization. And
Yeah.
the first thing is, which I tried to explain at the beginning of the book, we've used the language of gender equality forever. And people were okay with the idea of gender equality as long as it meant women wanted what men had, women should act the way men act. That was the framework for equality. It was men are here and women are here, and women, you just need to bring women to this level. But that is a male supremacist framework because the standard is always what men do or have or want or say or how they behave, which is how we end up with the clusterfuck of medical care that ignores not only women, but, Black and brown people and people with disabilities, because it's all standardized along the bodies of able-bodied cisgendered men who are overwhelmingly white. So that standard of gender equality was never really what feminism was about in my mind, because what it's about is power, and the power to redefine standards and determine what you want and how to get it and how society should change. And once that became clear and the true transgression of intersectional feminism gained some force, I think then we saw a societal whiplash to that. And here we are.
Because the cure for the boy crisis is for men to be emotionally vulnerable and connect.
Well, I think this is really pertinent to the boy crisis, which is usually focused on a conversation about boys and education. And by any overall metric, schools are still factories of male dominance. It is true that while women make up the bulk of teachers, men make up the bulk of higher paid administrators who govern
They also make up the bulk of school board members.
and school board members, right? It is also true that most textbooks still feature overwhelmingly men. It is true that sports culture, which is very dominant on American campuses, is very calibrated to masculine virtues and strengths and resilience. And so the overall environment in which boys are struggling, which is being called feminized because girls are succeeding, is not actually a feminized place. It is that girls are succeeding despite all of that, which we don't really give them credit for, right? But again, the standard was, well, what do boys have or how do boys behave? And that's all wrapped up in how we teach boys to be good men. And so if your ideals of masculinity are based, for example, as they are, on providing and protecting, that's really only can be defined in relation to women being vulnerable. Because
I loved so much what you wrote about how women protect men, all the ways that
yes,
women protect
all the
men.
time, right?
Will you talk about that a little? Like, because the framing about men as protectors is so deep. Yeah.
Well, I mean, let me just finish this one thought
Yeah.
though. If
Sorry.
boys who are growing up are thinking, I have to be a man, and the way to be a man is to be strong and to compete and to protect, they are not learning to compete with girls and women as equals. And they can't win by competing with girls because either they feel like bad people because, oh, I'm stronger, I'm smarter, I'm better, because that's what the world is telling them, or they lose, in which case they risk their status, their masculinity. So even if they won in some competition, they still lose. It feels empty to them because it certainly doesn't feel fair. And so that's the situation. And the result for boys is that faced with competing with girls and possibly losing, they do two things. They either detach academically and underperform, or they're very aggressive. And we're seeing both of that as elements of the boy crisis. One of the solutions to the boy crisis that's very prevalent is to redline boys, start them earlier, which then just generates lifelong dominance with peer groups, or remasculinize schools to make it more boy friendly. But both of those double down on the gender norms that cause men to feel threatened by women's success.
Which, by the way, is also why people attack sex ed and want sex ed out of schools.
How would you connect that for me more?
I mean, sex ed, if taught responsibly, and actually, I do want to take a minute to celebrate the federal ruling today that ruled that any sex ed that doesn't teach that trans and gender nonconforming folks exist is not medically accurate or complete,
Yeah,
and therefore in violation of it was incredible ruling.
that's
And
amazing.
also just fucking true. But sex ed is egalitarian, right? Like sex
Yeah,
ed teaches that everybody has the right to their own bodies.
that's right.
Everyone has bodily autonomy. Everyone is a co-equal human being, and we need to offer each other co-equal respect.
Yes,
Teaches about needing to handle rejection better. It undermines
all of those things.
all of the dominant stuff that you're talking
Right.
about is contained in sex ed, which is why we see, in the 30-year meta-analysis of sex ed studies, one of the things that was lifted up repeatedly is that when you teach sex ed in schools, it reduces
Yes,
patriarchal beliefs, right? It
right. And
actually,
that is the threat, right? That
yeah,
is why they don't want it taught in school.
yes, exactly.
And I remember one of the earliest conversations I think you and I ever had was about abstinence education and some of the ridiculous programming that was going on. This was many years ago. But unfortunately, that's on the rise in many places. And it is just defined by sex segregation, separate spheres theories, patriarchal relationships, everything you just described. And so sex ed is definitely something that is deepening the boy crisis if it is taught in non-progressive ways.
Yeah.
Um,
And if it's taught in responsible ways, actually is a solution to the boy crisis, but a
right,
threat to hegemonic masculinity,
right. And the
a
thing
threat
is,
to male supremacy.
to male supremacy. And so you had asked why I use the words male supremacy. And I personally am really tired of the right successfully moving the Overton window. I'm like, why are we reproducing their frameworks and accepting them? Like the Democratic Party's naming Project 2029 really disappointed and fucking pissed me right off. Because in fact, why do that? Why accept the terms as defined there and just respond to them instead of saying absolutely not? And so I think that by using the words male supremacy, we can be more honest about why gender inequality exists, which is because we have a culture in which men are still considered faster, stronger, better leaders, smarter people, more naturally inclined to be able to protect us or to govern. That is the heart of it. And it starts off in early childhood. And so we need to just say it. When we say gender equality, we create this image of gender balance, two sides, false equivalences, and we erase the fact of hierarchical power.
But
And
also, as you said, when we think about gender equality, we think about bringing women to a
up to
male
where men are.
standard, right? Instead of men maybe need to live up to our standards in a lot of ways,
Well,
right?
this is the disturbing thing, right? And
Yeah.
arguably, I mean, the boy crisis to me is largely fueled by male flight, right? And it's the stigma attached to any space, the stigma attached to any space when women start to dominate in it or to just be equal. That stigma associated with, oh, women are here, I need to leave, is why male teachers left teaching. Like right now, the boy crisis advocates are like, we need more male teachers, without really talking about the fact that male teachers ditched because they were ultimately sexist. They didn't want to be
I had
tainted.
so many male teachers in high school in the 80s.
I
I
mean, male
probably had
teachers,
more male teachers than female teachers, or at
there
least,
were more men
yeah,
teachers until, unfortunately, you know, the more women enter a field, the lower the pay goes, and then the
right.
men bolt and they go into, they actually, it's not just male flight from a feminized space, it's the fortification of masculinized spaces with higher salaries and more prestige. So if you think of the social sciences, as women became more prominent in social sciences, the men ditched and turned economics into the king of the hill.
Which, by the way, economics is a social science.
I know,
But
that's what I'm saying though. You know, you like it's not treated that way because it's men.
right.
You know, and
No
so
other
I
social
think that,
sciences get a Nobel Prize except
yeah,
for literature, right? But like economics is treated like chemistry, and like
yes,
when it's much more like
orange smoke and mirrors and psychology.
yes, exactly.
Yes.
Um, I just want to say to everybody, I could talk to Soraya indefinitely, but we want to hear what your questions are.
Yes,
So
please
don't be
ask us
shy.
questions.
Please put some questions in the Q&A and we will ask them to Soraya. I can stop asking. I mean, you all, I can ask Soraya questions
Well,
anytime.
I want to ask you a question.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you got to the part where I talk about OnlyFans.
I didn't get to the part about
Yes.
OnlyFans.
So I'll just run it by you because I would love to know what you think. So a couple of interesting things to me about OnlyFans. One is most of the creators are women who make an average of $180 a month. Plus
Um,
a month.
wow. I would have thought more.
No, it's not. But the high income earners are also all women, but they're also celebrities and they tend to be disproportionately white.
So
Okay.
they're like doing cameos, but spicier.
Cameos spicier, and in fact, they're outsourcing all of their chats to low wage Filipino men, which just makes me giggle. Okay. So, but the
There's
people,
dirt in this book. I haven't got to the
the
dirt yet.
people buying their time are overwhelmingly men sort of in their 30s, American, white, 80% of whom are married. 80% of conversations are not at all about sex, but about jobs, pets, movies, whatever. Right? So I don't think that this is a sex work platform unless you conflate sex with femininity just as the baseline. I think that it is women effectively outsourcing emotional labor to their profit. These men are they're buying women's attention.
I mean, anything that makes men value women's emotional labor is like a yes.
I don't think they value women's emotional labor per se. I think they crave centrality. And they're also buying a pornified commodity, which is different from sex.
Right, because like if they talk to their wife about it, if these are
Yeah.
mostly married guys, they would also have to listen to their wife's problems.
Well, there's no accountability in this,
Right.
right? It's centrality without accountability. And so I think what they're buying is centrality on their own terms outside of
I
relationships.
mean, I think if you're asking me what I think that's been a core part of sex work since time immemorial.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Like I actually don't think that's different than most sex work.
No, except that women can use technology to gatekeep their safety and
Yes, it's
themselves.
safer. Yes, agree.
And they are actually using the money to exit relationships with those men in real life, offline, right? Those are the women who are like paying for school, paying for housing, paying for lives in which they can build their own independence, right? And so, yeah, I just am fascinated by the nature of the conversations and the way it gets categorized in media.
Right. But it's because men still don't want to have like an actual reciprocal intimate relationship with women.
Right. And they don't want, I think, to develop the emotional competence that women are demanding, which is why women are exiting the chat.
Right.
You know?
Ooh,
Can you talk about,
what are we supposed to be doing? Yeah.
So it's, first of all, it's what are we doing, right? Like, it's very interesting. There's some very visible movements around the world, and they are global movements of women decentering men, which literally means creating lives in which men end up being peripheral, in which they are not dependent. They do not necessarily have to engage with men. This isn't for everybody, but in fact, it's a philosophy and a way of living. And so the most extreme version is in South Korea, where they have had extreme misogyny for a decade. And the 4B movement, which is no to dating, no to sex, no to marriage, no to children, is a sex segregationist movement. And many people have engaged in that. And right after Trump was elected, there was a global 4B sort of talk of explosion. But there are other things, they're just women who won't date across party lines. They're just quietly going about their business, refusing to do things that their mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers had to do. And I think it's important. What I say in the book is we can't discount that. We can't discount just the small day-to-day exits and refusals.
Especially because it makes men so mad. It reminds me of, I mean, there's all this talk of men being super mad that like liberal women won't date them. And it reminds me 10 plus years ago now, probably more like 15. I did an interview with Amanda Hess when she was at the Washington City paper.
That's a long time ago.
She's at the New York Times now.
Oh, yes, that's right. She just
Yeah.
wrote her book.
Yeah. Oh, an incredible book. Yes.
Yes.
And in it, I forget even what the premise of the interview was, but in it, I mentioned she asked me about like, oh, it was like a dating it had something to do with dating. And she asked me like what my red lines were with dating men, and I said something offhand about like if they said Fight Club was their favorite movie or something, like I didn't want to date
Yes.
them. Or maybe it was the book. I think I said if they had it on their shelf. And like men in the comments lost their
So upset,
minds.
right?
They
Yeah.
lost their minds. And
Yeah.
I was just so fascinated because I was like, you are not entitled to date me.
Yes.
I wasn't going to date you anyway. Like, this is genuinely none of your business. Like,
Right.
but they took it so personally.
Do you remember when the Barbie movie came out?
Yes.
So I don't know if you had any of these conversations. I saw a lot of it online, but I also had personal conversations of women that were upset because their husbands or sons didn't want to see this movie or didn't understand why they liked this movie. And the upsetting part was that they had spent their lives listening to men talk about The Godfather or Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever. And this one movie, men just wouldn't, they just wouldn't do it. And this asymmetry, this cultural asymmetry became very apparent in this one small instance. And again, it is that notion of male centrality in all things.
I mean, this goes to one of the things to get back to the question we're trying to answer.
Yeah.
One of the things you talk about in the book is the thing that I've been banging on about for a long time, which is we currently, as a culture, I'm not speaking for the people in this room, don't require young boys or men, but we should start with young boys to encounter stories where women are the heroes.
Oh,
There
no.
was for a while this very popular book series about it was like stories of brave women for young girls. I forget what it was
Brave.
called.
Yes, I know
It
exactly
was
what
called
you mean.
something better than that, but it was basically like framing like stories of
There
badass.
was one for boys and one for girls.
Right. But the one for boys wasn't of women, it was for boys.
That's right.
And I was like, why are we not asking the boys to read the stories of the heroic women?
Right.
And when we tell boys they don't have to read girl stories or watch girl movies, like they grow up male supremacists. No, I mean not a one-to-one,
Well,
but they grow up not imagining themselves into someone other than them, and especially not imagining themselves into the agency of women.
but also, I totally agree with that. And that's true whether you're talking about movies or textbooks or fiction or nonfiction. Like it's very consistent. And I actually just wrote an op-ed today and looked at those facts all over again, right? But an example that I put in the book, though, is that they grow up to be men, for example, who don't read books by women at all. I had a conversation with two men a year or so, a little more than a year ago, and they had a book club, and it was a men's book club, and it was great because they were socializing. It was just a lovely thing in their lives. And they asked me what I did, and I said I wrote books, fiction and nonfiction. I said nonfiction, and they said, "Oh, do you like it?" And I said, "To be honest, I'm frustrated because when a man writes a nonfiction book, women are 50% of that man's readers.
Yep.
But when a woman like you or me writes a nonfiction book, men are less than 20% of the readers, sometimes significantly less than 20%. And that's a problem for lots of reasons." And they looked at each other, and their book club was years old. And one openly said, "Do you think we've ever read a book by a woman?" And the other one said, "Never." And I was like, these are
Can you
two
imagine?
politically active, progressive men. And the interesting thing about it is they don't understand that that is the way women's expertise and authority get ignored, get
Do you know,
erased.
I was a couple of weeks ago at our No Kings protest in Boston. It was a great event by and large, but
Mhm.
literally none of the speakers, and there were actually some incredible, we had Ayanna Pressley and Michelle Wu and Elizabeth
Yeah,
Warren, but like a lot of men, and the MC was a man, and no one specifically talked about women's rights.
yeah, not a word, right?
No, they named every other ism and oppression, every other group
Right.
that needs to be organized and fought for, and nobody said, and we need to fight misogyny. We need to fight male supremacy.
Right.
Nobody said it, and it was really
This is
like,
why this is why these words are important, because in fact, there's a question here about radicalization, which I want to talk about.
yeah,
But what the right successfully did with Trump's election was to use the allure of male supremacy to build bridges between otherwise siloed men, immigrant men, Black men, Hispanic men, rural men that are white, urban progressive men who would have voted for Bernie. Like
yep,
the appeal that allowed him to build those bridges across those segments was that he was going to restore a sense of male pride, of male protecting, of men providing the jobs, the status. And in fact, he has systematically, through all of these agendas, set out not just to dismantle civil rights, but women's liberation, right? And the visible presence of women in the military, in NASA, in the East Wing, pick your
East
thing,
Wing.
right? I do want to answer this question about
Yeah.
radicalization, though, and maybe,
Wait, but can I put a button on the question, or maybe we come
yes,
back around to it when we wrap up, of like,
okay,
what are like the top 5 things that women are already doing that everyone
yes,
can do more of,
yes.
or however you want to answer. I do want to make sure that we cover
Do you want
that
me to say that now?
if you want.
Well, one is I do think this notion of decentering has relevance for everyone. You know, if you have small children and they're playing in sex segregated ways, de-sex segregate them and explicitly invite other parents to understand why it's important for boys to play with girls, for boys to hear girls' stories. I mean, all the girl dad, I see a lot of girl dad t-shirts, and it is one of my favorite irritating things to do, to say, hey, do you share these role models that you're supporting with your son? And I get the blankest looks. Like, what do you mean? The role model is for my daughter. And I'm like, we have role models. We've got them in spades. It literally, we have male role models, we have female role models, we have non-binary role models, we have excellent role models. I just want to know why your son isn't being encouraged, as you said, to have women role models,
Yeah.
you know, to
I think
have
that's one
gay
of the
role
most
models.
profound things we can do. The younger, the better.
Yes,
I also really like to, if talking about I know you like to talk about microfeminisms and
yes.
microfeminist acts.
All the
Like,
microfeminisms, all the
I
petty, petty,
love
petty.
to say, the MNBA, like
Yes.
the men's NBA, right?
All the words, use all the words all
Yes.
the time. And also, I just, maybe it's a function of age, I just cannot politely listen to people say horrible things anymore. I did that for a long time just because I thought I'm a polite person. It's not the time, it's not the place. I was really well socialized to make other people comfortable. And I just don't care. It's really saddled us with this shit show that we have, you know?
Yeah, I think Centering the discomfort on the person who should be uncomfortable is a great way of resisting and dismantling male supremacy. I learned something from the great and good Hannah Blanc, who's an incredible writer. Uh, if somebody, you know how men like to say it's a joke,
Yeah.
she taught me to say, explain it to me, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And like make them say out loud what they think is funny about the thing they just said, and they get real fucking uncomfortable real fast most of the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
I mean,
Make
they
them
can't.
eat it.
No. And I was talking to a man the other day, and someone said something like, I can't bear to watch the news. I'm hiding from the news. And he said, yeah, but we have to actually know what's going on. And to be honest, when I see the president talk, he's kind of funny. Like, it's kind of funny. And I said, well, you can only say that if you say he's kind of funny, comma, for a man who's been found liable for rape. Like, you have to constantly just say for a rapist in that context, right? And there was this moment of horror at the table. And then this man says, okay, I guess I do. And I was like, you do. And I could see the faces of the women around me, and they were happy, right? Because they were all thinking it, but no one would say it. And so, I mean, these are really small things we're talking about. I go into bigger things in the book because we have to confront, and you and I have been activists for a long time. We have to confront corporations and institutions and, do that
There's an excellent
work.
chapter about I mean, I don't know that the whole chapter is about it, but about women in politics. I guess it is a whole chapter.
Yeah,
And it made me think, I mean, we're heading in literally a week from tonight, or school board
yes,
elections around the country, and we have 18 incredible candidates, most of whom are women, because who are the pro-sex ed candidates who seek our endorsement?
right.
They're women, even though most school board members are men. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and they have like real safety concerns. Like the way they are targeted is very fucking
Oh, well, you and I have been doing this
yes,
for like we started off our activist work confronting
yes,
online violence and hate and
yeah,
harassment of women. And that's only gotten worse. And unfortunately, it's only getting attention because now it's happening in egregious ways to men too.
yes,
Right? I mean, it was happening to Black women, Jewish women, gay women. It was happening to any woman who opened her mouth about any
yeah.
social justice issue. And then it happened to women public figures and public health officials and climate scientists. It just kept happening, and it got worse and worse. And so, I mean, I'm glad it's getting more attention. I'm sorry it had to come to this.
But I would say like a bigger way if people are looking for it is, I know this is self-serving, this is what we do, but like
Yeah.
um
Oh,
like show up for women candidates, help women build power,
yes.
donate to them, volunteer
Donate to the
for
people
them.
that really need it, because
Yeah,
the right is massively funded.
there's
Turning
so
Point, Turning Point USA is putting chapters on campuses all over the country.
yes.
They have $90 million given by 4 individuals or 4 families, and there is no equivalent on the left. There's none. And we have got to find a way to figure out why that is, you know?
I mean,
I mean, we understand some of why it is, but there are also massively wealthy people besides like George Soros.
there are more massively wealthy people who want the Republicans because they don't.
Yes,
I think fundamentally most billionaires don't think of us as actual people. They think of us as like NPCs in video games, and
right.
they mostly just want tax cuts and to
Yeah, that's
acquire
right.
more money. And so they tend to support Republicans. Like I genuinely don't think it's deeper than that for a
And
lot of
if there were
them.
Democrats in power, they'd support them.
Yes. Let's make sure
Yeah.
to get to some more questions as well. So radicalization, and then we have a question
Yes.
about,
So
yeah.
I will say this in a self-serving way to Jessica. I have a Substack in which I've written about both of these, boys radicalization and girls radicalization. For me, at least, radicalization online means that a typical boy who maybe is looking to self-optimize, he wants to be stronger or learn how to make money or attract women, might go online looking for health information. And in a snap of a finger, he's down a rabbit hole of some very terrible misogyny, white supremacy, violent, incel, laundered content. And the manosphere is a giant sprawling network of very different communities, but they share a revulsion and contempt for women and an ideology of male supremacy across all of them, whether it is misogyny light or the worst of the worst. And that's what I would say the radicalization comes in the increasingly extremely misogynistic attitudes and beliefs. So Gen Z men and boys and the generation right after them who are entering adolescence already exhibit more gender traditional, anti-feminist, and hostile sexist beliefs and behaviors than millennial men or Gen X men or boomer men. They have.
Do you think that's because of the radicalization pipeline?
No, I don't. I actually think that's a combination of things. I think for Gen Z men, one factor that is underappreciated is that they were children right after 9/11. And
Oh, during the Susan Faludi wrote a great book about this. What was it called?
well, she wrote Stiffed just before 9/11.
No.
Wrote after, yes, she did.
It was a book about the swing to traditional gender norms
Yeah.
after 9/11.
And I think she wrote that in like 2007. And so what happened is because American pride was so dented, American strength was violated, the image of that was violated in an unprecedented way. The culture doubled down on tradition. It doubled down on Republican motherhood, which is where we got the manic mothering and the helicopter parenting and the, protect your children at all costs. Like we talk about helicopter parenting as though it's unrelated to the fact that you actually had to protect your children, right? And you had to protect them from terrorism and anthrax and snipers, and it was just everywhere all the time. But for boys growing up, culture heavily invested in notions of masculine strength and resilience. I wrote a book in between these two, which was about that. It was about masculinity and ideologies of resilience and capitalism. And so those boys have been basted in this very kind of retrograde gender ideology. So it's not particularly surprising to me that the things being said in the manosphere sound true to them.
That makes so much sense to me. I never put those things together. The book is called The Terror Dream, and it's really excellent.
Yes.
We have a couple more questions to get.
Just one thing about the girls' radicalization.
Yeah, please.
A similar thing is happening a few years delayed on the right with women. I call it the prairie dress to push pipeline. It is literally the same process where women are maybe looking for clean eating, clean girl beauty,
all those prairie dresses started,
all the things.
Yes.
But it's just, it's the, make America healthy again, the return to the land. It is heavily defined by white supremacist beliefs. Aesthetics are very important. Anyway, that's also a very diverse network of very different communities that I urge you to look into.
Candace, do you want to drop a link to the session we did with Britt Bishkoff on that? Great. We have two more questions that I want to get to before we do the book draw.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the role of TTRPGs? I don't know what TT stands for there, but I know what an RPG is. And actually play streams and podcasts, which often femme heroes and characters that challenge the structures of gender binary and shifting conversations. Is that
I can't see this question.
You can't?
No. But you tell me what it is. I don't know.
This is a question about femme heroes and characters in podcasts and video game streams.
Oh, okay. I can see it.
That space, is that too niche to be a bellwether, or am I naive and think there's hope in the growth of popularity in that space?
So let me make sure I'm understanding the question. So for example, right now, about 30% of men and boy gamers will take on a female persona or avatar. Is that what we're looking at?
I only have this question. This is not my niche.
Okay. So
can you not see it?
If Blue is still here and can clarify, I do think that it's really interesting to me because the very earliest days of the internet where there were no videos or pictures allowed people to experiment with identity, with gender, with sexuality. It was very liberating for a very short time.
It was fun, yeah.
In that way. And you could have these alternative experimental identities and relationships, and you could explore without fear or shame, all of these things. The minute people figured out how to drop pictures into the World Wide Web, that went away.
And
I
especially video. Yeah.
especially video. And so I do think, I don't know if we're answering this question properly. There is some hope, I think, but
Oh, I think Blue has
also,
written us a little bit more.
I also
We're
think,
thinking about Dropout, Critical Role, Friends of the Table, Legend Dark. I live in a bubble of queer happiness and representation. Soraya, have you watched Dropout TV at all? I haven't watched these other
no,
things, although I will
I
check it
will
out.
though.
I'm obsessed with Dropout. Wait, let me explain this for people who don't
Yes.
know what it is. Dropout TV is a spinoff from College Humor, which is hence the name Dropout. It's run by Sam Reich, who is Robert Reich's son.
Oh, I do. I love it. I love
Yes,
it. I've seen it. I love it.
there's
Yeah.
all it's a whole TV channel. I mean, it's a streaming channel, but it's fundamentally like a TV network.
Yes.
And I agree, like it's like
I
the politics are pristine, but in
I
the
don't think
lightest,
you're
funnest
naive.
way. Yeah,
Yeah,
what?
and I don't think you're naive. And as a matter of fact, this is one of the refusals that I talk about. It's one of the ways we are dismantling. There's no time when social justice, certainly not in favor of any assortment of women, has been the zeitgeist of the culture. It's always, always countercultural. And I think it's really important that we remember that everyone today is leading a feminist life.
I love that. Say more. I know what you mean, but I want you to
They
say
just
more.
are. Like we all have the right, and most of us the ability to be educated, to read, to drive cars, to have our own bank accounts, to rent our own homes, to divorce if we're married, to marry when we want to, in some places to end pregnancies that are unwanted or unsafe. The overwhelming reality of the world is that it is a feminist world compared to what it was even 40 years ago, you know? And so it was 1992. How old was I in 1992? I was 26 in 1992. In
Sounds right,
1992,
yeah.
it was still legal for men to rape their wives, right? And
Yep.
so it wasn't because the whole world said they wanted us to do those things. It was because a small, dedicated group of people in communities like the one you're describing here, you know, small, rich, happy, for me, anger fueled in the best way communities persisted and had solidarity and did the things. And I think that will continue to happen. And so,
And that's actually one of the themes of the book, as you mentioned already, which is
yes,
like part of the things that we should do are things that we are doing, and
we're just doing
we
them.
need to not be fucking dissuaded. We need to not take our feet off the gas.
And to realize that what we're doing is just by existing, we
Live
have
our lives in defiance of male
in
supremacy.
defiance. And
Yes.
it doesn't feel transgressive because we're just trying to keep our heads above water.
Yeah.
You know, but it is transgressive, especially transgressive as there is a completely well-funded massive political machine that is part of a global macho fascist backlash trying to end it.
Yep.
That's just where we are, but nobody I know is stopping. We're just kind of, sure, we're exhausted, it's exhausting, it's sad, it's frustrating, all those things. But at the same time, here we are, right? We're doing
Yep.
this, we're talking about it, and we're going to continue doing the work.
I
And
keep saying I'm just going to keep doing my work until somebody stops me.
yeah, I mean, I just want us to appreciate that it's this work that got us where we are already,
Yeah.
right? The reason
Yeah.
we have queer spaces and games and communities is not because the
Yeah,
world
I
said
mean,
we
at the
should
same
have
time,
them.
in 1992, when it was still legal for men to rape their wives, it was scary for me to walk around the streets of Boston holding my girlfriend's hand. Like I was
100%.
terrified.
But I'm scared for friends of mine who do that now in certain places, right? Like, but there are more places where it's okay.
But also, like, to think we would have like a whole TV channel, not explicitly queer, but incredibly, like, the amount of
Yes.
things that have happened since then were beyond my imagining. And I know, and because of that, I know we can do it again. I want to get to
Yeah.
these other questions about
Yes,
raising
yes.
kids and before we do the book draw. So
Hmm.
if we can combine these two
Yes, what did I say?
questions. One is
Oh,
about raising boys inequality, and the other is what are inroads to gender equality for boys
yeah.
online.
So to Morgan's question, Rage Becomes Her is a lot about teaching children emotional competence as a tool of egalitarianism because it's good for them as individuals, but it's also better to produce a just society. And the same way, I always joke that I could have taken the book, used all the same research, and written a book about men and sadness. So we take anger away from girls and deprive them of its values in the same way that boys are really harmed and just they're not supposed to be sad, fearful, anxious, or anything feminine. And I do think that it is possible to find other like-minded families and children and to cultivate those connections and to actually work through schools. I have had 3 children in schools. It is very hard. Schools are inherently conservative, even progressive ones. So you have to be a change agent if you have the energy. But I do think just accepting children as they are is half the battle because they'll grow up to be people who do it for others.
And if I may put a little cherry on that, that's what sex ed teaches,
That's
right?
what sex ed
Sex
teaches.
ed teaches that emotional literacy and an emotional, if you don't yell at me for saying the word resilience, right? Like,
Yes.
um, sex ed teaches all that stuff that you
All
just
of those
described.
things. Yeah,
Yes.
it's just emotional intelligence and empathy and caring for people. Yes.
Yeah. All right, it's time for the fun part. So what's going to
Yes.
happen now? Soraya is giving away 3 books.
Yes.
And Soraya, so that you don't have to share your email address, I'm going to have
Yes.
everybody, when they win, email Candace, and we'll share that
Yes. That's
the
great.
addresses with you. So
Yes.
what's going to happen is Candace is going to draw 3 random numbers on a random number generation on her screen, and she's going to go that number down on the list of participants, and those are going to be the people who win. And while she's drawing 3 numbers, I'm going to give you a little pitch, which is, you all, we do this work. We're here every month with this No Means No event. The rest of the time, we are working our butts off to support school board members and school board candidates who are going to be or are pro sex ed champions, sex educators, people who are advocating for sex education. We are resourcing the movement, and you can resource us by making a donation if you appreciate these events, which are always free. If you appreciate the work we do, if you want more sex ed so that we can dismantle male supremacy and get everything that we deserve, if you can make a donation, literally $5, $10, every little bit helps. We really appreciate it. So Candace, do you have numbers yet, or are you too busy dropping that link?
I got the last one spinning. Give me 1 second. Got
Okay, we're gonna have
2 winners
suspense.
of
I love
last
your.
number.
Soraya was holding the snake earring reveal to the end.
Oh, yes. Don't you love my
I
snake earrings?
love them. I
I do
love
too.
them.
I wear them all the time.
You know,
Okay.
this reminds me, I just want to sort of say a little summation, which is like, this whole conversation reminds me of the aphorism, if you're going through hell, keep going, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like the message tonight is like, keep going. Like, it doesn't feel like it right now, but actually we're winning.
It doesn't feel like it, but I really think that I really believe in the power of unintended consequences, which I also really write about, and they're awfully good, some of them.
Yeah. All right, Candace, who's getting free books tonight?
Yay. So we have 3 winners. Number 9, who is Gabby Flowers.
Gabby, excellent. In a
Yay,
minute, Candace is going to
Gabby.
drop her. Actually, I'm going to drop Candace's email address while Candace is
And
talking.
I'll pop these in the mail this week.
Thank you.
And if you win, just email Candace your mailing address, uh, and we'll get this handled.
Yep, I'll
Congratulations.
make sure to forward that to Soraya. Number
Yeah.
13. Oh, sorry. Did I cut someone off?
No, go
Number
ahead.
13, Kristen Pritchard.
Woohoo!
Yay.
Kristen. And
And Number 12, Jessica Jernigan.
Jessica,
Oh, good.
excellent with the great questions.
Yes.
Congratulations, everyone.
Yes,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
Make sure you email Candace with your mailing address. And everybody else, go buy the book. The book is officially out, not next week, but the weekend, like
November 11th. And it's small and it's not expensive. I really
very
wanted it to be
delicious
not
little
expensive.
cookie of a book. It's
Yes, it
also,
is.
I have to say, there's great stuff at the end of each chapter. There's like a great little summation and then like fun and unfun facts that
Yes.
like make
You'll
you
laugh. You know me well enough. My fun and unfun facts were 6 pages long, and my editor was like, no, one. She's like, one.
What I love about these is these are what you can use to make people uncomfortable who deserve to be
That's true.
uncomfortable. Just pick a fact and memorize it and then drop it when someone deserves it.
Yeah.
So read this. I swear it will give you a
Thank you.
jolt of energy, which is what we all need right now.
We do need the energy.
It will
We
give us
do.
energy.
It gave me energy to write it, to
Yeah,
be honest.
you can feel it. You can really feel it. So Soraya, I love you, but
I
also
love you too.
thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
everybody.
for tonight. And we'll see you out there, everyone.
Yes.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.